There was also one in the title race, if you like, with my beloved club Brentford involved, as they earned a draw at Arsenal. Ivan Toney with the equaliser at the Emirates, but Mikel Arteta felt that Christian Norgard, who actually put in the cross for Toney to score, was offside in the build-up. This is what Arteta had to say. He said, "I've just looked back at it and it was offside. Have they explained why it wasn't allowed? No. It's frustrating, but they'll probably give an explanation later in the week. Today, we haven't got one." That's just a couple of the incidents. There were others as well in the game. You could look at the Crystal Palace Brighton one, where Purvis Estupiñán's goal was ruled out for offside. But actually, when you look at how VAR reviewed it, they used the wrong player to mark the lines. And with regards to the Palace defender, had they actually used the correct lines and lined up with the right player, you might have seen that Estupiñán was onside. But anyhow, lots of controversial moments in the game. There's plenty more as well. I mean, you could even argue about the Mario Lemina sending off, but that wasn't to do with VAR. Yes, Cass, I don't even know where we start, but maybe with the title race. Shall we go to the game that my team was involved in? Yeah. It's really interesting because I've been looking at the papers, and a lot of the papers these days speak to former referees, and I wanted to give you the take from Mark Halsey, who is speaking in The Sun today. And I'm not saying he's defending the VAR involved in this game, but he's perhaps giving a different view. He's saying, obviously every aspect of a goal should be reviewed by VAR. And there was a long review of the Ethan Pinnock offside. Yeah. Was he interfering with play, and Gabriel and all that sort of stuff that was looked at. And I think it was about 3 minutes that VAR looked into this goal. Now, the suggestions that he didn't, I think it's Lee Mason, that he didn't look at the Christian Norgard incident. But Mark Halsey's take is, and I'm not saying he's defending it, this is just what's written. He says he looked at the time that it might have been offside, but from the footage, it was not clear because the cameras did not appear as if they were parallel to the play. That made the incident inconclusive. We have seen that before when, if you remember in the FA Cup, Wolves against Liverpool had a goal chalked off where they actually did come out and say we didn't have enough cameras involved in that game, so we couldn't get the right angle. Again, though, I'm not saying that the goal should have stood, because actually I can understand completely why Arsenal are upset by it. It did look offside, absolutely. But that's just another angle that maybe we're not really counting, that maybe the VAR didn't have all the necessary footage, perhaps. I don't know. I'm just surmising.
Yeah. Really tricky, this, because as an advocate, which I was, of technology coming into the game, I thought we'd improve and I thought we'd get more honesty from the game. There seems to be more confusion than ever over so many incidents. I mean, you talk there about the Norgard situation, whether he's offside. And there's now a question of whether the lines, with the right people have been taken on board. I mean, I yesterday saw the handball of Soucek and I laughed. Because he's literally dived like a keeper. Now, okay, he's not got his arm outstretched like a keeper to make a save, but it's a deliberate attempt. Now, you could say, well, he's really smart, and the rules are that if you're falling to the ground and you need your arm to put it to the ground, to steady yourself. I mean, but it's a clear handball. Now, look, both of these games were really tight, and they ended up 1-1 in both games, and we're not giving enough credit to how Brentford played. We're not talking about that yet. I'm sure we will during the show because they were superb yesterday. But it's all come down to 2 VAR incidents in certainly the London derby, West Ham versus Chelsea, and then we've had another London derby, Arsenal versus Brentford, where clearly mistakes are happening.
Yeah. It's hard though, isn't it? Because with that Soucek one, for example, that is all down to interpretation of a law. And if the VAR in that incident believes that he has fallen down and using his arm to support himself, the law sides with that player in particular rather than giving a handball. And that's down to interpretation. Yeah.
Well, I have to be honest. I don't know. I didn't know that law.
Yeah.
That I mean, I don't know how many people do, apart from officials. I don't know how many people would know that law, that if you're falling to the ground and you're putting your arm for support to, help you with the fall, that is okay. I never knew that. So I'm confused because we see so many law changes within the game. And that, to me, is a clear handball, as you're going to see. Because it is, it's got to be a pen. It's an effort on goal that is basically saved because he's got his arm stretched out as he's falling. You can't be denying a penalty for that type of incident. So I'm confused because, like I said, I never knew that law. I've been in the game 40 years. I never knew that law. That's the first time I ever heard of it.
I must say, though, in that particular incident, I was very infuriated listening to the pundits post-match on TV about it because they were all blaming the VAR. And I kept thinking, it's not VAR, it's the law. That is what they're interpreting. Now, we might all disagree. We might all say, no, that to us is a handball. But if he's thinking, and I think it was Neil Swarbrick, the referee, the VAR for this one, if he's thinking, no, by the letter of the law, he has fallen and therefore using his arm to support himself, it's not a handball, that's his interpretation of it. You cannot have a go at VAR for that, because VAR is not to do with the law. He's just interpreting it that way. That's the problem when you have subjective laws. Going back onto the offside situation in the Emirates, like I mentioned, totally understand the frustration from Mikel Arteta and Arsenal. I think Brentford might themselves have some frustration because they had a goal, you could say was ruled out, although the whistle blew just before and Brian Mbeumo scored. But that was given for a foul that was never a foul because Gabriel slipped.
How far do you take all these incidents? That's part of the problem.
Yeah.
How many layers do you keep taking away of incidents?
And that is the problem, isn't it? When you have something like VAR, which is scrutinising everything, yet not necessarily scrutinising it in the way that we're all hoping it to be. I always do my best to support referees because I think they've got a really, really tough job. It does, again, annoy me when I'm hearing other pundits say, well, they've never played the game, have they? Never played the game. Well, I'm sorry, you've never reffed the game. So how do you know? You can't compare the two. Until a player decides to become a referee or even just gives it a go, like we could give a challenge to a player. Go on, do it for 10 games, see how you fare. You will find that you will make errors as well. You will have decisions that don't go the way that others will see. It's not an easy job. No, I totally get that. So I think it's very lazy and easy for pundits to just come out and say they've never played the game. Those refs never played it.
We would get a lot wrong. If we were given the whistle tomorrow and said ref that game, we would all be making horrendous mistakes. That's clear. I have a bigger problem. I think the laws need to be reviewed, simplified. There are just way too many.
I think that's it. Simplify it.
It's just too complicated. You know, like I said, how can I be in the... I know, if you go to the game of golf, there's loads of golfers who don't know every rule because golf is so complicated with rules that you see them, they wait for a guy to come on like a ref and tell them what they need to do. Yes, they ask the question, but they're not sure. You know, now we're in this murky world of football where footballers are not sure, coaches are not sure.
And that's partly because laws change all the time. Yeah. Every year there's a review of the laws and something new comes in, and it's very difficult for everyone to remember the new interpretations, for example. So
have you so I ask you the question, have you ever heard of the law with if you're falling to the ground?
Only this year, because
I've never heard that.
But it still seems a little balmy, and it does look as though Souček's slightly manipulating it.
Well, there's the abuse of the law, because you could say, well, players who are falling, who just lean to one way and fall to the ground and put their arms slightly out, could you stop the ball?
You could say it's clever play. Yeah. And if it's a loophole that you can get around, then you're going to try and do it, maybe. Yeah. And we might see more players do it similar.
The Sunday Sports Breakfast with Natalie, Sawyer and Tony Cascarino. Sunday mornings from 6 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.